What is going on? I want to welcome you to From Half Court for today, July 5th, 2023. Happy belated 4th to all of you From Half Court listeners out there. I'm one of your hosts, Sean Murphy, alongside my boy, pretty boy, Jeff Iafrady. Jeff, what's going on, man? How are you doing? It's good to see you. Hope you had a good 4th of July weekend. We are past NBA free agency, man. How you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I felt like I had to fight off a horde today this morning, but you know what? I can't wait to address it all with our guy Brandon Dent. So he's going to break it all down. But happy belated 4th to all those people out there. Hope everyone had a safe but also fun holiday weekend.
Yeah, we don't even know if we survived the 4th yet. So hopefully we had a safe one too. But also joining us is our guy, the Pistons beat writer for Woodward Sports, also the godfather of Woodward Pistons, our man.
Hey, I appreciate it. I appreciate it as always, man, to be on with Mr. Everything and Sean Murphy. Hey, it's pretty dope. And shout out to Troy Sergey too, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Troy, that selfish human being decided to go spend this time with family. I don't know why one would make that decision, but no, we love Troy.
We have a perfectly fine family right here.
So yeah, we love Troy. Absolutely deserves a week off. Hope he enjoys. We'll have plenty to dive in about everything with him once he gets back too. But if we figured if Troy wasn't going to be here, let's bring in someone who's in the building, who's around the team, who has his finger on the pulse. But first, this is From Half Court each and every week. We talk all things Detroit Pistons and NBA. If you like this video, be sure you like it and also subscribe to the channel. Hit that mother notification bell so you don't miss any of the content. We are very close to 3,000 subs here on the channel, so be sure you hit that subscribe button. But also follow my guys here on social media, Jeff at Jeff Iafrady, and also my boy Kool-Aid at Detroit Kool-Aid. But first, guys, let's talk about it, man. The Pistons free agency has come and gone. Finally, all the months of speculation are finally over. And I don't know about you guys. For one, I wasn't expecting by the end to have this many teams with this much cap space. But also, I wasn't expecting this much squabbling and competitive signings over role players. But ultimately, I think despite a really competitive market over a very what turned out to be a very subpar to, not great free agency class, I think the Pistons were still able to get value and they didn't even have to give up anything. If anything, they were given stuff to take on Joe Harris from the Brooklyn Nets, who I know people are focused on, are looking at his averages. And I know it's not flashy, but guys, this is for my money one of the best spot up 3-point shooters in the league. He's got to be top 5 on the list in the NBA as far as spot up 3-point shooters. And you also go get Monty Morris, a very reliable backup point guard from the Washington Wizards, a veteran, a guy who is familiar with running an offense, who can have the ball in his hands, a steady presence, solid on the defensive end. Both guys can shoot the three. Neither are going to blow the wheels off the brakes, but at the same time, it gives the Pistons flexibility in the future with salary cap space, but also 2 tradable contracts as well. So, I will give my thoughts on free agency and how some of the reactions were in just a second. But Kool-Aid, from your perspective, I want to start since we do have our guy Kool-Aid here. I want to start with our guest, with our guy Kool-Aid. What were your initial reactions to how free agency went down, and what was your reactions to the reaction?
Yeah, my initial reaction was, well, Troy didn't lie. We all sit here and we wear 2 hats. One where we try to properly disseminate and report what the organization and the team and the GM and players and coaches are saying. And then one where we say what we think makes sense. And Troy, he said after the Asar Thompson, he said before the Asar Thompson, pick that, They're hoping to go out there and swing big. That's what they're trying to do. He confirmed after it that was Asar Thompson, and that did affect what he was going to do in free agency. So I wasn't shocked at all. I was, I guess, more or less surprised because I thought that they were in a position now to kind of move forward with maybe a high price free agent that could fit the bill of that 3-and-D wing that they were looking for. But the more and more I kind of looked at it, I was like, you know what? It's pretty savvy. In the past, we would have botched this. We would have given our money to middling players for 3-4 years, like, the SVG years. And this is more savvy. It's not encumbering the Pistons. But when I saw the reaction that everybody else had, I was just like, come on, guys. We've been here, done that with Troy Weaver. There's always layers to this thing. Always. People sat here for a while and they said, all right, cool. The Jeremy Grant for Jalen Duren stuff was cool, but we have a hole on the wing. And I remember we sat with Rob Beard of Detroit News, and he was just like, look, guys, I wouldn't be surprised if there were 1 or 2 trades this season. And before the season even started, after free agency, right, they made the trade for Bojan Bogdanovic. So I'm not surprised. Troy's kind of been a GM that's been true to his word. And he's been a guy that has shown some versatility.
Yeah, absolutely. Kool-Aid, I'll say that last part in a more blunt way. I think we have one of the most toxic fan bases in the NBA, and I think it's a genuine problem. And I'm not even joking anymore. I think there's a lot of people within our fan base that I saw that I even respect, people I interact with on Twitter, that were full out acting like children throughout this entire process. And, it's one thing to be bummed. And I understand, not being thrilled when you don't get a big name guy, because you want your team to be in that conversation and you want to see your team get better. But at the same time, when they don't make moves that, like, they made moves that made them better. I also just think, and Jeff, this is something that I think you and I have been maybe talking about for a bit. We keep talking about this roster as if this is a 17-win team on face value, like as if there wasn't a lot of context and reason as to why this was a 17-win team. I think I would make the argument, and I think you would agree with me, that if Cade Cunningham and this whole team was healthy together, this was not a 17-win basketball team, and we need to stop pretending like that's the case, because that's not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think to just address the moves that Troy had over the weekend, it's very simple. If you look at it in a vacuum, they got better. And they got better for essentially free, which is the bigger point to take away. And something we've been talking about a lot. You look at the draft, they got better defensively. People complained about shooting. He got Joe Harris and Monty Morris. People are still complaining, guys. Like, this is the problem, to Sean's point. Troy Weaver knew what he had to address. And although he's not as accomplished as Steve Yzerman, these guys have plans. They have plans in place. And you look at Troy, he pivoted, clearly. That's why he did the deal he did with the Brooklyn Nets, because he knew he wasn't going to be in the Cam Johnson market, guys. Cam, what he got from Brooklyn, look at that contract. If the Pistons get in on that bidding offer, which assumingly they would have been the only teams interested, you would have had to pay significantly more to not get the Nets to match him. I think the Nets would have matched that contract offer. I mean, he got 107. Even if you gave him 118, 120, in my opinion, the Nets are still matching. So to get Cam, you have to significantly overpay for what? A guy that we believe in his career can be what? At the highest point of this team will be a third option. And that's not no slight on Cam. Love the fit. But let's look at this realistically. The play was always next season. There's better free agents. You maintain flexibility, which I feel like has been the theme of every offseason for Troy. It's always the word of the summer is flexibility, which he continues to keep the cap flexible. And again, with Sean, you've been hammering this on this podcast, educating me and Troy about the new CBA and what that entails. Teams are going to start selling more and more. So Troy maintaining flexibility is going to keep him in these conversations while still getting draft capital. So I get why people are frustrated. It's not the big names, but go get me the big names. Who are they? Who's the big names out there, guys? Like Joe Harris and Monte Morris are both serviceable pieces. And if we bring up something that we talk about a lot, what are they asked to do? Don't base Joe Harris's value off last season. Because I swear, man, that's the most frustrating thing. Well, Joe last season averaged 7-8 points. Look at the role and look at what he was doing for the Nets. In prior years, Joe Harris has always been and a great role player. That's what he's going to be in Detroit. And again, him and Monte bring shooting to a team that desperately needed it. So I love what Troy did. Really, for nothing, they got better.
Yeah, and you put Joe Harris on the wing alongside guys like Alec Burks. Probably not going to be able to play alongside Bojan a whole lot if they want to stay defensively versatile. But that's going to be an interesting thing to watch as far as lineup combinations. Again, this team still is subject to change. Trades could very much could still happen. But I mean, guys, if we look at the free agency market and like all the contracts that were given. If Detroit was going to bring someone home, like to Jeff's point, if they were going to get Cam Johnson, they were going to have to pay an extreme premium for a guy who, as much as we all love, he's only played over 60 games once in his career. And if there's anyone that knows the status of his health and is in the in-depth particulars of his medical report, it's the guys that we just brought in to be in our coaching staff in Detroit.
Yeah, and just to add to that point, Sean, thank you for the context, because that's something that people have been talking about too. I think that's accurate for Troy, and there's always a why to these things. DMAC always mentioned it. What's the why? And in this situation, why did Troy Weaver not throw money at Cam Johnson? It's not as simple as, yeah, no, we don't want to get better. Like, there's something to that. It's either the money, the health, and again, to Sean's point, you have Monty Williams in the building, who is with Cam Johnson, one of his favorite players to coach. So if anyone knows anything more about Cam, it's Monty Williams. So again, I get the frustration. Obviously, Troy's tenure will be based on wins and losses at the end of the day, but he's doing his job, and I think he's doing it at a great high level, in my opinion. He's doing everything he's supposed to be doing. He's not screwing over the money, which is something Pistons fans know very familiar with this franchise. And people want to complain when the money's screwed up. We have contracts tied to, so-and-so, so-and-so. But when you keep flexibility, people want big names. It's like, if you want a big name, tell me who it is, because I don't think it's Cam Johnson. And Troy clearly agreed with that.
Yeah. And I mean, again, like the teams that are getting into the apron, they're doing so over the players that they're betting on are the right players. Like the Warriors are getting in the apron with Draymond Green, which I think if there's a guy to get in the apron for, it's probably a Draymond Green type. But Kool-Aid, you and I were probably two of the loudest Jeremy Grant proponents and voices in this space. I don't know how I would have felt if Troy Weaver signed Jeremy Grant to a 5-year, $160 million contract, let alone, I mean, if he potentially, was going to get pulled from Portland, who knows if he could have potentially asked for more from Troy Weaver. I mean, we love Jeremy Grant, but excess of $30 million for 5 years for a guy who's 29 years old. I mean, Kool-Aid, I mean, just personally, even for a guy who loves Jeremy Grant, that's a hard pill to swallow.
Well, when I'm looking at all the numbers that are going out there, especially for guys like Dylan Brooks, is when I understand why Jeremy Grant got what he got. And There's another nuance here too. The guys that the Pistons were rumored to be after, that were rumored to be, hey, we're willing to throw some money after, those guys got more from their respective teams than the initial reports and rumors. Jeremy Grant and Cam Johnson both got more. So we don't know what Troy Weaver did. We don't. Maybe Monty got his homie paid. Maybe he helped Cam. We know that they helped the Nets get the space and everything. We don't really know. But I just thought that was an interesting wrinkle there. But with Jeremy Grant in particular, that would be a hard pill to swallow. Me personally, I'm a little bit more bullish on who Jeremy Grant is as a player, what he continues to show. Like when people compare Jeremy Grant from his Detroit years to Jeremy Grant in Denver and who he was with the Blazers, or who he's been with the Blazers, that's where it kind of grinds my gears a little bit, because they used him completely different. The usage rates was about 7-8% difference, and the 3-point percentage with the Blazers versus here with the attempts. I just think that who Jeremy Grant is turning himself into is somebody that will have some longevity. But you're right, man. That contract it's a hefty one, and I don't quite see Portland winning a championship with Jeremy Grant there underneath that contract. It's gonna be tough for them. It's gonna be tough.
It's going to be, and even like to trade that contract now too, under the new CBA, is going to be super difficult, because now even as much as we love Jeremy Grant, let's say there's a situation, one day where Portland says, hey, Jeremy Grant's available. Well, now not only are you you would have to give up assets now to go get Jeremy Grant back, but in addition, you would have to acquire that contract. And, I know there was a report that said that there could possibly be a trade market for Jeremy Grant just because there were the other teams that were interested in free agency, but I wouldn't necessarily draw that conclusion because I think, especially with that contract, it is going to be a wait and see with how Jeremy Grant plays going forward. But even other guys, like another guy that I love, Bruce Brown, like a guy that we have been singing his praises like no tomorrow on this podcast. A guy that, I would have loved to have brought back to Detroit. Even Bruce Brown got overpaid this summer. He got a $22.5 million contract from Indiana. And when that tells you that, and then that's not even we'll get to Houston later. Like because that's a whole other conversation. But in all seriousness, like I understand like fans wanting to see us go make the moves to secure to make us definitively better. And I think we did make moves that were definitively better. It's just, again, I think people are underestimating the reality that Cade Cunningham's coming back. And that's going to be the thing that ultimately would drive how much better this team gets next year anyways.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, to that point too, and this has been said a ton of times, superstars help you get to the NBA Finals. Role players help you win the NBA Finals. You just saw that displayed with the Nuggets. So for Cade, you're right, Sean. Everything is based on Cade Cunningham. So for people, and this is what I love about sports, but also I hate about sports, fans love the transaction over the action. That is how it's always been. And shout out to Neil Rule. He always says that. Fans love the transaction over the action because it's so true. People want big names. And I know we're going to get to Houston later in the show, but it's the old question. Would you rather be the Rockets, what they did, or the Pistons? And we'll talk about that later because I got thoughts on that as well.
And here's a reminder. The Pistons acquired Bojan Bogdanovic on September 26th of 2022. Mm-hmm. So to imply that the offseason is now complete, in that the free agency market is just completely over, is not true, because guys like Grant Williams are still on the market. Eric Gordon is very much still on the market. There's a lot of really good players that are still available. But also, if you look at the roster as currently constructed, there's a lot of opportunities for trade. And I think there's a specific player where the writing is starting to kind of get on the wall. Over the last couple of weeks, there's been a particular position that seemed to get a lot of addressing, specifically the backup point guard position. I wonder what player could possibly be the odd one out. And guys, what do you think that means for Jaden Ivey? No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Jeff looking. Troy.
You answer this one.
Yeah, I mean, guys, in all seriousness, I know we saw a report from a guy that we don't Jake Weinbach, who we don't quite know his background, but I mean, guys, it doesn't take 2 + 2 to fully put together that the writing might be on the wall for Killian Hayes here.
Brandon, you could take this one.
Yeah, every single time I start to think that, the deck just seems to be something cleared for Killian Hayes. And I think with the new CBA and the value pit that Killian Hayes is putting himself into, I think he might work himself into a deal for the Pistons long term. I've always said that I felt like Killian Hayes needed to be in a position where he had a little bit less responsibility, but a little bit more help around him. Putting him purely at a point guard spot, him as the backup point guard purely, or the starting, I feel like that's always kind of dinged his career just a little bit. He seems to play a little bit better as a combo guard, an off guard, when he has the ball in his hands. Not in a stand in the corner and shoot type of guy, but when he has the opportunity or the ability to kind of play, make, and create off of his own ingenuity and not necessarily go run this set, go run this play. And we talked about it in preseason when he was tied with Ivy and Cade Cunningham in field goal attempts. But then his role changed as soon as the season started. And he just seemed to change as well, like drastically, historically.
And I just think the leash, in my opinion, Kool-Aid, at least from my perspective, especially with Monty coming in and just with the selections they made in the draft, but also in free agency, it just seems to me that leash for that leash that was there for Killian just got tightened by a very significant margin.
I'm kind of pushing back on that notion a little bit. I am. I feel like some of these moves help Killian, and that's what I was trying to say. When we've seen him at his best is when we've seen this team with a little bit more talent around it, especially when they went on that 10-14 stretch in the post All-Star break with Cade. When they got those NBA type players back from injury, especially like Jeremy Grant got healthy, Kelly Olynyk got healthy, Sadiq Bey was popping off for his 50, and Killian Hayes was putting up, I know, at least 13 of those games, a really, really, really nice stretch. It was when they had kind of everybody there, and it took
Right.
the pressure off of them a little bit, in my opinion.
But at the same time, though, I just feel like if they are going to be taking the next step and bringing in, two guys who can space the floor and probably bring something relatively comparable on the defensive end, I agree that Killian is better when more talent is around him. But at the same time, are we almost getting to the point where there's so much talent on the roster where he's just simply not good enough to get playing time? Because
Brandon?
if we're just being honest, he's not been NBA level at this point.
Well, how about you look at it as an insurance policy? You have Monty and Marcus Sasser. We don't have to say Killian's future's over now, but Brandon, you can't deny that they have insurance now with Killian Hayes. He was battling with Corey Joseph last season. Now you got Monty, Marcus Sasser. You got some more. Joe Harris now at 2 guard. Like a little more competition just in the backup guard position.
Yeah, definitely competition, definitely insurance. The first thing I thought about when they brought in Joe Harris and Monty Morris is the fact that Bojan and Killian are prime trade candidates. But what I'm saying is I think that for a guy as young as Killian Hayes, who's still learning, he's in a different position than Monty Morris and even Sasser, who came out with 4 years from college. These are guys who you kind of know what they are. Whereas Killian Hayes, if this was a situation where you were still trying to teach him basketball like Sekou, I would probably agree with you more. The notion here is, can you get the best out of this guy whom we've seen his best? Troy Weaver, he drafted him for a specific reason. We've seen that reason before. And if up to this point, like we've seen with Jeremy Grant, who was kind of used wrong, some of these players have been used wrong and they've gotten an opportunity to go other places and show a little bit more. If they can unlock that with Killian Hayes at this point in time, same thing with James Wiseman. I believe that they have a low-cost option for this new CBA era to be able to move forward and have players that can still grow, develop, be within your culture, and be somewhat the players that you picked them to be. And that's the only nuance with Killian. He's still so young. He's still shown so much.
He is young, and I do agree with that. But I would just say Killian played 76 of 82 games last year. He played 66 games of 82 in his second year. He's played 108. He's played 168 games in his career, and he still doesn't average 40% from the field or 30% from the three. He's starting to get to a point where he's almost averaging half as many turnovers as he has assists for a guy who was brought in to be known for his playmaking talent. I think there's a lot of reason to still. I'm not saying that the Pistons have sold their stock on Killian. I would imagine, like you said, if there are prime trade candidates, he's certainly one of them at this point. But I think at the same time, if you were to look at Killian, and I don't want to definitively write him off, but again, it's just if we are taking that next step this upcoming season, and he does come, and especially if he comes out and doesn't play well to start the season, I just don't think there's nearly as much of a runway or incentive to give Killian those minutes at this point. At least that's just my opinion.
Well, and let me just say just real quickly, Brandon, on the just kind of me in the middle, because I don't think you guys are too far off from each other here. I think everyone kind of agrees. So just to address what Sean said, the difference is with this roster, now you get to see them in meaningful games. That's Killian's next step because he's played well during a stretch in which, the Pistons weren't that great. But this season with Monty, there's more pressure of Killian. If he can at least, just shoot 40% from the field. I think that's like a fair ask, and 30 from 3. If he could do that with what he brings defensively, his playmaking, the turnover to assist or turnover ratio needs to be better. But regardless, there's time for Killian to grow. But I think now you have an insurance policy because you're going to be playing more meaningful games, and you'd like to go into a game or a situation, especially late in the fourth quarter. You need a backup point guard. At least you have Monty Morris instead of Killian Hayes. But I think there's both. I wouldn't dump him for scraps because I don't think his value's high, number one. And number two, I think there's still upside there, but at least you have insurance. I love what Troy's been doing. I do, to address that position.
Yeah, and the only reason why I said I don't know how they're going to necessarily clamp on his minutes is because if we look how Troy has done things in the past, especially with like a Sadiq Bey, they actually increased his usage, increased his minutes, increased his opportunities, and they showcased him. And I can see them doing something like that with a Killian Hayes for the first half of the season. Troy has kind of shown that, even with a Trey Lyles, man, he showcased a Trey Lyles. Trey was
But
going out there getting.
we weren't trying to win games those years though.
Well, the first half of this season, if we're based on what Troy is saying, the first half is going to be seeing what they have, not necessarily trying to go out there and win games. They don't know what they have. They can't even go out there and trade like the way I know you get into Houston. Houston believes they know what they have. The Pistons do not know what they have, not even in a guy like Killian, who they just drafted.
But I
They've
still
seen
think
his
the
peaks
mindset
and
is
his
to turn the
valleys.
corner this year though.
I think that the mindset, more or less, just based on what they're saying, is to figure out what they have. They want
What
the guys to go out there and play full on, but this team may look drastically different after the trade deadline, or even more different starting next season. That's
Can't
a
there
real.
can't there be like a happy medium where you find out what you have, but by default with your young talent with Monty, you win 30-ish
Well,
games?
that's
Like,
what I'm saying. I'm not saying not to
yes,
do
okay.
that. I'm just saying, like, at least what Troy is stating is that
Yes.
the notion, and based on what we saw them do last year, they didn't try to even hamper the guys they played until the second half of the season. The
But
first half of the season, they tried to play all their guys. They
could
tried to go full fledged.
could there be a point in which and I'm just throwing a hypothetical, and Sean, I wanted your opinion on this. If you put Killian out there and he hinders that, I would at least, I wouldn't want to keep putting Killian out there to see what you have. If he's hindering winning basketball, I know you're finding out what you have. You pull his ass.
Full
Like, I don't think there's as
transparency.
much room for error this season. I don't think so, but maybe I'm wrong.
If he's proving that he's a bad basketball player, then that's what he's proving. But
If he's a
the
liability.
court will prove that. I don't think that they're going to take away his opportunity to prove that. That was what I was saying. Like, based on what they've done with Sadiq Bey and what they proved,
Right.
there were bad stretches of Sadiq Bey last year. They still didn't just pull him. They still kept putting him out there. We kept asking him, like, well, what's going on? Well, we're going to continue to give. He's one of our young players. He's part of our core. We're going to try and move him in this position. We're going to try. And then after he got traded, I was like, I see what they're doing here. It was just a little bit different approach. And Troy's always kind of worked this angle of trying to have his players or his assets look like they're good fits to the team or in a trade package. He's always kind of positioned the assets to look like that. And yeah, I'm not sitting here saying that if Killian comes out here and puts up 20% shooting, oh no, let's just give him more time. I'm not saying that. What I'm just saying is for the space of the first half of this season, I can see them giving him every single opportunity to actually try and succeed, to run his value up and things of that nature. I can actually see that based on things that they've done in the past.
And I guess this is just more like my thing, and maybe this is just like a personal opinion thing. Maybe I just feel like at this point we would have seen something from Killian that would give us more of an inkling to say let's go forward. At least to me, 168 games through, there should be something we're hanging on to. But that's my opinion. I'm curious to see what happens with Killian. Part of me wonders if he'll be on the roster come training camp, but that'll be one of the offseason storylines for sure.
Well, James, I think nailed it. James, and he was on the pod. You can go watch that episode. He was dropping a ton of bars during that episode. And one thing he said for Killian, and I agree with him, and I think you guys would as well. Well, Sean would, but I think Brandon, even though he didn't hear the quote, he would agree, I would assume. Killian Hayes has to score, or at least be an NBA, drive to the basket at an NBA level. And at least be an NBA, shoot the three at an NBA level. If he could do one of those two things with everything else, the rest of his skill set, I think that he can have a job in this league. But he has to do one of those two things: either be an NBA three-point shooter or an NBA being able to drive to the basket at an NBA level. And I agree. I think that's spot on for Killian Hayes.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that statement. That's one of the things that I've kind of had a knock on with for Killian is the fact that when he gets pushed, you look at his rookie season against Trae Young, against Fox and those guys, certain matchups, he's looked like a guy who can get in there and dunk off the dribble in half court. He's gone in there and he's bodied people. I've seen him take Fox down into the paint. And that's what I'm saying. Like, the stuff he's put on tape says that the talent is there. He has some good stretches. We can go and we find him 13, 15, 20, 30 games where he's doing it. And then all of a sudden, what the coaches and the people who are analyzing him and seeing him every day, they're saying it's something more or less up here. And that's the conundrum. If he looks like, at least for me, that it's just broken in the first half of the season, you got to do what you got to do. I'm not by any means sitting here saying, let's baby him, let's give him more time. I'm saying, no. But the space for evaluation and everybody going hard is, on the court is this first half of the season. And that after that, the expiration for me, or at least that time, that wick for Killian gets much, much, much smaller.
And I don't think Killian's leash, because you compared it to Sadiq Bey, and I agree with you. The reason he was able to advertise Sadiq Bey, make him look like a Lamborghini, and then he got to Atlanta and things changed. But I agree. But the point of that also was because Cade was hurt. This season, if everybody's healthy, I don't think the showcasing will be there for Killian. Like the leash is a lot shorter, is my point, than Sadiq Bey, where Cade's out. You're like, Sadiq, go out there and be you, and you're gonna help us deal you. But Killian Hayes, I don't know if that leash is like that. That's my point.
If Killian's gonna run the offense for the Pistons at all, whereas last season it might have been for significant stretches in the first half and for a little bit in the second half, I think he might run point from 12 minutes to go in the second quarter to 7 minutes to go. And then that's it. And then he would play more of an off-ball role the rest of the game. At least that's how I would see it. But again, it is interesting, still looking at this is a league in a conference where, you look and it's like the Pistons got better. Every team got better. But then if you go top down and look at the conference, it is still tricky looking at, all right, how does this team get to the play-in, even with, a lot of the improvements? I mean, Atlanta's a team that can kind of go up or down any year. Toronto, they've just lost Fred VanVleet. We don't know what's going to happen with Pascal Siakam. We're hearing his name's heating up in trade conversations. So maybe they could be a team that falls down. We know the Wizards are going to go below us. That's a for certain. Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma are going to, lead that tank fruitfully for the Washington Wizards. But I mean, that is with how much parity there is and how much depth there is in this league. I think the Pistons still got better, and I think are going to end up probably getting 27, 30, 32 wins. And they're still going to be very much in a space where, they're just crawling or scratching at the play-in. And I mean, I get that people want to see us take that insane step. And I think we're going to take a step this season. But I mean, in this league, I believe it was Pat Riley who said, first you have to start at the bottom, and then you have to contend for the playoffs, and you have to get in the playoffs, and you have to lose in the playoffs. You have to get to the second round, and then you have to get to the conference finals, and you have to get to the finals itself. Like, it is a process that you have to plug away at, slowly each and every season. And even if we don't end up in the play-in or the playoffs, this is a roster that can very much, at the very least, compete for that opportunity each and every night.
Mm-hmm. Orlando did it last season. And to your point, too, the Nuggets had a 7-8 year the totality from Mike Malone's first year to now winning the NBA Finals. So it can be longer, especially for markets like Detroit, where you can't go out and fix everything in one offseason. You have to be very smart. You have to at least take your time, draft. And a lot of the NBA franchises now, if you're winning, a lot of it has to be built at least fundamentally through the draft. Not everything, but most of your team, the dynamic of your team will be built through the draft. And I think Troy's done a good job of that. So for the Pistons, at least next season, you wanted to be kind of like the Red Wings this season, where the Red Wings floated around right under that wild card spot and they hung in there. And then down the stretch, they pretty much sold, and then things went the way they did. But if the Pistons are in that conversation for majority of the season and they don't make the play-in, I don't think it's the end of the world. Now, context matters, and there could be injuries, there could be a lot of things, but I don't think it'd be a complete failure if they don't make the play-in. But contending for the play-in, being relevant in that conversation late in the season is ideal. If they fall short and you're not going to make it, 50 halfway through, then I think there's more of an issue. But there's a lot of context though that matters, not just not contending for the play-in.
I just realized the play-in tournament's just the wild card with different wording. Son of a bitch. But anyway, cool. anyway, Kool-Aid, and I'll say this, with, I think another thing this brings up as well. We talked about for months, the Pistons getting a 3-and-D wing, getting a guy who can help us on the defensive end. They did get a 3-and-D wing this weekend. I mean, not this weekend, this off season, but it was Asar Thompson. And it's pretty clear, Troy said at the press conference They think this is a guy who can come in and get 14, 16, like 18 points a game right away. And it's pretty clear that he thinks, like, when he said that this is a guy who can almost immediately be who very quickly can be a top shelf defensive player. I think this is showing, like, his actions are showing he means what he's saying.
Yeah. You talking about with Asar Thompson?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, he's the one that interests me the most. Obviously, he's intriguing. People are ready to see who Asar Thompson is, but just from the comments that Troy and some of the people on the team are saying about him and his defense and the impact he's going to have, and what Asar Thompson was even saying today at the preseason, the pre-summer league media session, as they called it, it was all about defense. One of the questions I'm hoping to ask him is, how ready are you to compete night one with your defense? You know, how is your defense there right now where you think you can step out and defend the best players every night? Like Troy said, are you ready right now to take the pressure off Cade and Ivy? And I believe if Troy is saying that about Asar, but I kind of want to just see how Asar Thompson answers the question, because so far everything has just been stoic. Like, man, that the confidence, like the way that that Cade is kind of cool, calm, and collected. Asar Thompson is he's kind of the same way, but he has that youthful confidence to him too. And I'm excited to see what he can do defensively for this team. I think he's going to be a difference maker year one. I really do.
I fear that with Asar playing an overtime elite, I feel like he's going to face perhaps more skepticism for his play in summer league than other players, just because people are going to be grading his play against this level of competition. And although I think, I would understand that line of thinking, I would again urge that summer league means jack diddly squat. I mean, the only thing summer league has done over the last 2 years has confirmed that we like players that we've drafted. And the only player that we had a significant epiphany about in the summer league over the last 2 years,
Austin Day.
Well, I mean, yeah. No, I was going to say Paolo Banchero. Like
Henry Ellison, man.
Like really the only epiphany we had was, oh yeah, Paolo should have gone 1. Like that's literally the only thing. And even then, like, hindsight. But like, like in all seriousness, like with the summer league, like what I want to see, and like I would just be curious, like what your guys' thoughts. I want to see the competitive level. I want to see, how much energy they bring. Specifically, I want to see Asar bring that smoke on the defensive side of the ball. I know a lot of guys come out to summer league and they want to show what's in their bag. They want to show like what they got. I love the guys who come out to summer league that are looking to play scrappy as hell. The guys who just make people's lives really hard on the defensive side of the ball. The guys who you can tell are playing for jobs. Like I want to see that out of Asar and Marcus Sasser both. And also the fact that we might get to potentially see those guys play with Jalen Duren and Jaden Ivey for a game, because from the sounds of it, those guys might play a game. I mean, we'll take that.
Yeah, and if anything, the obsession with summer league just proves that we miss ball. I think that's really all it meant.
Oh, 100%. It is like, give it to my veins. I am like a freaking addict on major withdrawals right now.
Well, that's how, I mean, listen, I understand it, but the fact that people obsess and analyze summer league, yeah, it's like, why? You know what I am excited for, just for the storyline's sake? Don't they got Houston game 2?
Yeah.
So, hey, I'm excited for that storyline. And I want to say something on the defense too, because people will say, well, so far this offseason, you've only addressed it with Asar Thompson. I think there's a part of this, and I don't know if it was schematically, if it was because of what each player was asked to do. Ivy, as bad of a defender as he was the second half of the season, that ain't the truth. Like, you look at the offensive load he had, I think there's a little that doesn't tell the whole story. So I think Ivy could be a much better defender. We know that. He's got the
put Cade next to him too, by the way. He's going to be way more comfortable on the defensive side of the ball.
Right. And I think Cade, we know he's a solid defender as it is. So you got Ivy with less responsibilities, more focused defensively. You got Cade, who we know is a great defender already, and with his size and length as it is. You got Asar Thompson, like Duren, if you're starting him at the 5. Like I get that Asar Thompson, you look at the offseason, yeah, he's the big one they've addressed, which the offseason isn't over, guys. But even if they don't do anything else, this team, I think, with Monty Williams now, will automatically be better defensively. So As much as people want to harp on what they did and what they didn't address, I think it doesn't tell the whole story with what the team has. Personnel wise, I think they have a lot of dudes that are capable, at least.
Can I give one more observation that I had from this free agency period? This team, unlike a lot of the fan base, still really believes in Isaiah Stewart. And from the sounds of it, a lot of the fans are seemingly putting him on the bench. The Pistons aren't. Seems like if things aren't changing right now, no reason Isaiah Stewart isn't starting night one, right?
And it's funny because, and I'll just say this quickly, people want to crap on Isaiah. And again, I get, if you look at it, which this is what I don't understand. People call the 2020 draft a bust or a waste. It's one of the most frustrating things ever. Killian Hayes is we can at least say at this point a bust. Saddiq Bey, what you flipped him for, if you look at statistically what players turn into past pick 10, 11, you're lucky to get a Saddiq Bey. You're lucky to get an Isaiah Stewart. It's all the time people do the hindsight 2020 game and go back and say, well, Desmond Bane, Tyrese Maxey. Like it's hot, guys. When you're selecting these players, you're essentially reaching into a hat and just pulling something out. And if you get a Tyrese Maxey, great, but typically a lot of the time it is not. So for
and also you're in COVID. And you didn't see any of these players.
Thank you. Which that's a big reason too with that draft and how complex it was. But for Isaiah Stewart, I love it. And if for people that are saying, Isaiah Stewart, trade him, this and that, because I've heard that. Why are the Celtics interested in Isaiah Stewart? Why
were the Warriors seemingly interested in Isaiah Stewart?
Like, these are teams we respect. Why do they want Isaiah Stewart? And why do you want to trade Isaiah Stewart? That's what's appalling to me. But yeah. I'm excited for Isaiah Stewart's development. I really am. And I've seen prices float around for Isaiah Stewart. I'm going to be honest with you. If he gets a $15 million annual contract, I'm cool with it. If he continues to get better from three and what he's shown and what he can be defensively, I'm cool with it.
Yeah, coolly. Isaiah Stewart, another guy who was in the building as well. He was getting up shots with Cade for a little bit from what we could tell. I mean, I know you were interviewing players and coaches and stuff, but from the little you saw, Stu, how's he looking? Like in the gym, it seems to me, like I'm not sure if he slimmed down at all, but like, I mean, he looks insanely in shape. Like he looks like he could play an NBA game literally any given day.
I think that's the biggest takeaway from a lot of the players that we saw there, from Duren to Wiseman to Stu to Cade. They all look healthy. They all look in shape. A lot of the big guys look like they've slimmed down a little bit. I don't know if that's to help with versatility, since we know they have that to their game and in their packages, but for Isaiah Stewart in particular, it's a little difficult to see how they look in terms of their game, but in terms of what they're working on, they're going hard. Cade Cunningham, though, bro, you want to talk about Pleasantville, man? Go look up the movie. He wasn't missing anything, bro. He wasn't missing anything. Listen, dog, for everything that we said about Cade Cunningham, it's like, you want to see the explosiveness and all that. You want to see him get back healthy, but he was looking good. But Stu, the heartbeat, I think the soul of this squad, we sat here for a long time and knew that he was kind of the only guy on the team who had a certain quality that he does. We're hoping that Marcus Sasser has that as well. They might be cut from the same cloth. But I don't know. You have teams who win championships, they have guys like Isaiah Stewart on them. Just because the Pistons aren't in a position right now to support him, when they had more guys around him, they were a little bit better. It's only so much you can take from the season, but the lineups that did have Stu and Duren together with a few more of the NBA guys, they look good, and they were the Pistons' best defensive lineups on the season. So it's like, we can't really judge this team based on the fact that they haven't had a lot around them. But Stewart is not a guy that you just say, let's just chuck him. How long have we waited to have players that other teams coveted?
And for real, I'm like, he's like the one player of all of the players that we've drafted that you can look at the consistent development from year over year. I think he's like the most shining example of the development under Dwayne Casey and how much his game has grown. The player that we thought he was going to be day one versus the player that we think he is and can be now is a completely different reality that if you would have told me was a possibility on draft night, I would not have believed you. And the fact that we're here is a testament to Isaiah Stewart, and the fact that you want to bet against that guy, I don't know what to tell you.
You know what I love, and you're going to get the comments now. Sean, how dare you bring up Dwayne Casey and developing Isaiah Stewart? All of that credit for Isaiah Stewart's development is Isaiah Stewart's credit. But then when players play bad, Sean, what do they say?
The coaching with Dwayne Casey.
So when he's
problem in Pistons history,
I love what
sign Josh Smith and give Killian Hayes a supermax.
When they stink, it's the coach's fault. When they're good, it's not the coach's the coach's credit. I love it. I do.
Dude, like I mean, well, before we move on from like Pistons free agency and stuff, because we do got to talk. We do have to talk about what in the hell's going on in Houston, because I have been biting my tongue for too long. I do think a lot of the I think there was a lot of overreaction. I think the fan base was, a bit crazy. And I think it's not impossible to rule out that the Pistons can see something from this team in the beginning of the season and can go make a move and cash in and do something at the deadline. But ultimately, I mean, Kool-Aid, it's kind of like what you referred to at the beginning. They think they have some guys, but they really have to go out there and confirm it this season. Like we think Cade's a guy. We're pretty sure Cade's a guy. We're pretty sure Ivy's a guy. We're pretty sure Duran and Asar can be guys. We need to see it first before we can definitively cash in on something, because we've seen in the past, when you cash in on the wrong players, it will doom you. And with this new second apron, which again, I will, if you're sick of me talking about it, I'm not going to stop. Here's a new fact, by the way. I texted this to the group chat the other day. Did you know, with the new second apron and the collective bargaining agreement, if you reach, or if you exceed that second apron for the next 3 of the next 5 years, your draft pick in 2032 will automatically be at the end of the first round. You can be in the lottery, end up getting the first pick, but it doesn't matter because you were in the second apron for 3 out of 5 years. Your pick moves all the way back to the end of the round.
Jesus.
So again, people talking about, oh, why didn't we go get Cam Johnson? Why didn't we go do this? Because if you're gonna spend on someone, you gotta be damn sure that you are getting the right guy and that you are getting the value, especially before you sign Cade to an extension, before you sign Ivy to an extension, even before you sign Isaiah Stewart to an extension. You better have an inkling of an idea of what you have and that it's the right guy you're getting. That's really where we're at with the collective bargaining agreement. I mean, that literally, that very well might have changed the Pistons' outlook on free agency altogether.
And is Cam the guy you go through a $30+ million at for 4 years like that?
As much as we
not
like
with
him,
the questions on defense.
as much as we love him, probably not.
Yeah, it's not even to like, because I know fan bases do that when you don't get a player, you harp all over on their downfall. It's not even about that. It's just reality. Like, if for Troy Weaver's sake and the Pistons' sake, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense right now.
And also, realistically, do you foresee watching, which, by the way, something really funny, Victor Wembanyama isn't even playing, and it's Spurs Hornets right now. Brandon Miller is playing. He's been on the court the entire first quarter. The Spurs are up 24-7, and they have all undrafted free agents.
Should have been Scoot Henderson.
Yeah, that, anyway, I just thought
not trying to overact Summer League. I know.
Yeah, it's just Summer League. If that's not a metaphor, I don't know what is. Anyway, like all that to say, I really like what the Pistons did in free agency. If you don't, I suggest doing a little more research on what they did, because I think with context, with where the league's going, with where this team's at and where they're heading, I think they gave themselves flexibility, but also, guys, they gave themselves some good basketball players.
Did they get better?
Yes.
Okay. for free, essentially. Besides the cap hit, which isn't significant, and they come off the books next season.
Europe, and now we could have as much as $60 million of cap space next season. And we could be like the Houston Rockets in free agency, except let's not be like the Houston Rockets in free agency because, guys, what in the hell are the Houston Rockets doing? $40 million a year for Fred VanVleet at 29?
Oh, yeah. And that's the question. Would you rather be the Rockets or the Pistons? And to your guys' point earlier, it's a little different because the Rockets were able to see what they had last year. But even now with Troy, it's not even for me, at least just seeing what you have. It's about believing in your young core. And the Rockets, to me, with what they have, if you believe in what you have, you just added two guys that, I mean, Cam Whitmore to me should have been a lottery pick. So technically 2 lottery picks in the first round. You let them play, but then you also hire Ime Udoka, which that process gets sped up a little more. So I don't know what Houston's doing. I wouldn't have thrown $40 million annually at Fred VanVleet. And then you throw another, what's Dylan Brooks making annually?
4 years, $80 million. So he's getting $20 million a year.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
Listen,
good luck move. We've seen Dylan Brooks. I mean, it got so bad that the Grizzlies just said, bye, walk. And they throw 20 at him. Yeah, I would much rather be the Pistons right now, man. And I'm not even just saying that to be biased. I mean, that could go ugly very quickly. Because how are you trading Fred with the new CBA or Dylan?
You're not. I mean, like Dylan, I think is the one that you could conceivably trade, just because as much as a problem as he is, a personality wise, as much attention as he might bring, he is a really good wing defender. Like he is worth that price for that reason. However, the potential conflicts he can bring to the locker room. I mean, guys, the crap we've seen about Jalen Green over the weekend, which if you don't know what's going on with Jalen Green, just don't Google it, please. Just if you haven't seen it, save yourself from seeing it. Kool-Aid, do you know what I'm talking about? Do you know what I'm talking about with Jalen Green?
We got the right draft pick.
Yeah. we drafted right. We chose wisely.
Damn.
If a Cade video like that dropped, I'd jump off a building. Anyway, like in all seriousness, like I like,
damn.
You know, like like you still have Kevin Porter Jr., you have Jalen Green, you know, have Fred VanVleet, who as great of a character guy as he is, and I think he's going to be awesome for their culture. He's still another strong personality. You know, Dylan Brooks is another strong personality. Like you have a lot of guys who want the ball. You still don't have a super defensive minded team. Yet you have you're gonna be, because you have Ime Udoka, which I said this before the pod. And listen, I love Ime Udoka. If there wasn't any of the Rob Murphy stuff in Detroit, I think it would have been a little more of a conversation of Ime Udoka possibly being in Detroit. I mean, he was the secondary candidate when we hired Dwayne Casey, right? But are we sure he's a guy? Like I know we got Boston to the finals the first year, but it's like we're automatically crowning him as a top 5 coach in the league, and we're completely ignoring all the baggage and going, wait, why is he not the coach in Boston? Like it's like we completely wiped our memories of that and just are assuming that nothing's gonna happen. Which in a city where, let's be honest, seems like James Harden loved the strip clubs there. So I have no idea what Ime Udoka is going to be up to in his free time. Not being that guy. I'm just saying.
And I don't, it's tough because even for Monty, he's shown, but he made the NBA finals recently. How do we know that can be replicated? Like, but then Ime Udoka has,
but like for all intents and purposes, I mean, Ime Udoka's coached one season, Jeff.
Right.
He's literally coached one season. Monty Williams is a multiple time like this guy's won coach of the year like 2 times.
Yeah, and
he's been up for it before. He was with the New Orleans Hornets with Chris Paul. Like he has lineage and experience and a resume. Ime Udoka has one season.
Right. And that's the boomer bust thing.
And he went into and by the way, mind you, he inherited the job from Brad Stevens, who was not a slouch of a coach. It's not like he went into a team that didn't have a culture. They got to the conference finals twice.
And did Brad Stevens go away? Or is he Pat Riley-ing this thing? You see what I'm saying? Like that's a difference.
Eyes above.
That's a difference when you're talking about with Emi Udoka and what you saw to Boston. We don't know what was going on in Boston. I don't know if Houston knows what was going on in Boston. We're not going to knock Emi for what they put on wax for that 1 year, but their basketball culture. We talk about the budding culture that the Pistons are starting in their front office and in their organization. What Boston has, that's like on steroids in their front office, especially with Stevens still there. So it's just like, I don't know. I don't really know how to even weight the Udoka situation and what.
Right, like how much did he really build the culture there? That's my question.
Exactly.
Because they had Will Hardy, who we saw how awesome he was for Utah. Like he came in and that guy flipped the switch for them. And so you see like that coaching staff was stacked. And I mean, Joe Mazzulla with essentially like a waiting staff from Pizza Hut as his coaching staff. They still got to the conference semis. You know what I mean?
Man, bro, you took it back to Pizza Hut restaurants, bro.
Bro, I like for real though. Like I was like, what is
the cinnamon sticks, man?
Oh,
you mean the sit downs, like when they used to have the buffets?
Yeah. Oh man, we got to do a from half. We got to do a from half court from Pizza Hut. Anyway,
breadsticks are off the charts, by the way. Side note, Pizza Hut.
Oh my, yeah. I mean,
it always comes back to food, Sean.
We could do a whole pod about the downfall of Pizza Hut. I could do a 30 for 30. What if I told you that Pizza Hut somehow is ass?
Yeah, that's facts, dude.
Oh but man, like
I told you. All right, now this has got me, man. All right.
Anyway. I mean, yeah, like listen, do I think the Houston Rockets got better? Absolutely. Like you would be lying if you said otherwise. However, they literally had to spend their money this offseason because there's a rule that you have to spend 90% of your salary, and they were spending well below that. So they had to go spend. And in my opinion, like if you're gonna go overspend on guys, like in my opinion, if you're gonna go spend 20+ million a year on a guy, go get Brook Lopez. Like spare Dylan Brooks, get throw a few extra million. If they did 3 years, 75 to Brook Lopez, that might have been an overpay, but damn it, I would have understood it because that's a guy who's a defensive pillar, an NBA champion, a guy who would bring like everything that you want in like the modern NBA. But like guys like Fred VanVleet, who's inherently undersized, who you just have questions about his overall longevity in his game. Guys like Dylan Brooks, who was literally laughed off the court in the playoffs, and everyone was joking he had to learn Mandarin. And like, you know, like seriously though, like I mean, like with Houston, like I know that this has a chance to dramatically help their culture, but like I don't think this is as much of a grand slam as a lot of the people in the national media are putting it out to be. Like, I just don't. Like, I understand Pistons fans looking at this situation and going, why aren't the Pistons doing this? And the answer to your question is because they actually have something that they're building that they believe in. Houston is so terrified, they had to go spend that money this offseason. Yeah. That's why.
Bro.
Transaction over action.
Bro, they went and drafted Amin and then went and signed Fred VanVleet to all that money. It's like they don't know what their culture is. They don't know what their core is. They just to put it in juxtaposition, you literally have Troy saying, Asar's our home run. We got to see what he has. He's going to be this time. The Rockets are just like, yeah, we got a Thompson twin that we drafted before the Pistons.
And yes, they got Cam Whitmore too, which is like phenomenal talent. But like, why did he fall as far as he did? And on top of that, you have a lot of guys who are very bucket minded, who are very give me the ball type players. But don't get me wrong, you want guys who want the ball. I'm not saying you don't, but at the same time, when you're trying to build a culture that's about sacrifice, it's about defensive minded, that's about it's about building a situation that's around pros, and you just have a ton of guys who are very much not that. It just inherently raises questions. And again, they got guys who will help maybe foster that, but at the same time, I just don't see how this makes Jalen Green better. I just don't.
Well, they got better, but at what cost? And I think that's the That's the trade-off for the Houston Rockets. We'll see. I think it's more it'll be short-term success. Again, defined success. I don't know what that means to the Rockets, but compared to the Pistons, short-term, more success. Long-term, I think you'll see that's where it'll differ because the Pistons will maintain flexibility and they'll swing on a player that I think deserves it rather than just trying to cash in on guys that you think deserve it.
Yep.
Man, I continue to sit here and I wonder, look, they went out there and signed a wing and a guard, and I wonder to their young core if them spending on the money on guys like Monty Morris and honestly Joe Harris would have fit for their core a little bit better. Honestly, I don't know. I feel like this to me speaks to the fact that they really needed voices. Like they needed to be able to develop something in that locker room. Like Troy and Monty and even Dwayne, these guys, even the players, they're all talking about their locker room. Marcus Sasser, like, I wanted to come here. I know this coaching staff, he said today, and he knew some of the players. He grew up with, kind of playing ball with Cade Cunningham and some things of that nature. And that to me speaks volumes. The Pistons don't have to go and sign somebody to create a culture or go get a coach to kind of come in and bring a new voice. Remember, they specifically said that, like, we don't need a new coach to come in and get a new voice. They don't have to go. They only need players that can augment or fit their locker room. And that's what's so significant about Troy Weaver saying he would put this locker room up against any others, because the Rockets, they couldn't say the same thing.
Yeah. Monty Williams talked about on day one how this group was going to do as much for him as he was going to do for them, and about how he would put this locker room against anybody. And you can have questions and qualms about like the quality, about like what these guys are as players, but you don't question their effort or how bad they want it. You don't question where James Wiseman's at because he's literally in the facility every single day. Literally, this guy today said he's doing 3-a-day workouts in the gym right now, starting at 8 a.m. This guy's living in the gym. Like, I'm not trading that guy yet. I'm not. Like, a guy who's that talented with that mindset, with that desire, and granted, that's what he needs to be doing if he wants to catch up. But damn it, the fact that he's putting in that work and he's not being asked to, like, that's just him wanting to be there. Like, and you have that from the top down. Like, again, like that, like, I know people call us homers and things like that. I would be ringing the alarm bells if I had them. The reason why I'm telling you I'm excited about this is because we haven't had this in Detroit. And before and to kind of close all of this, James Edwards III tweeted something today that I think kind of summarizes a lot of this really well. He kind of talked about like the Pistons and free agency and what you need to do before you go for it. He said, "You like what the Pacers are doing? Well, they drafted Paul George, got Oladipo and Sabonis for him, and then churned Sabonis into Halliburton. Phoenix, Devin Booker, and got KD because they drafted Bridges and Johnson. Toronto, Denver, you have to draft well before you go for it." And I responded and pretty much summed it up this way: got to build the house before you try to sell it. And right now, the Pistons have a really solid framework, a really solid foundation. I think they're putting on a lot of the siding and getting the house ready. And I think they have a lot of pieces that people are already looking at and they're going, man, you know what? We really like where this property's at. We really like Isaiah Stewart. I mean, the kitchen. You know what I mean? It's like there's a lot of things that people like, but these rebuilds that have all these pieces that you like, they were only there because they traded an asset that they drafted or built in-house. Like even the Rockets, they traded James Harden to get all these young prospects people love. It wouldn't happen without that. And the Pistons, they got all of this young talent, which by the way, they've gotten multiple all-team rookies over the last few years, a feat that no other team in the league has done. And they did so with having to scrounge for picks, with not having anything to start with. How many times do I have to repeat that they started the rebuild with Svi Mikhail, Luke, Bruce Brown, and Luke Kennard?
Well, that Bruce Brown part kind of looks good.
I mean, yeah, man. I mean, my God, I guess he's getting paid mega bags.
He's a max player.
By the way, can I ask a question about that Bruce Brown contract for the Pacers? Why? No, like, I mean, like, seriously, like, yeah, it makes them better defensively. And like I like their roster going in, but like
That's a case
why?
of here's money for 2 years. Here you go.
Like, do you see Bruce Brown staying long term? Also, as much as I love Bruce Brown, are we sure he's going to be the same guy without Nikola Jokic?
I mean, if well, no, to the second question, nobody's the same probably after leaving Jokic. But the first question, in Indiana, ooh, if they trade, they're probably going to deal Buddy Hield, I assume. So
Yeah,
maybe he starts, but even then, what option is he? I don't know. There's a lot of questions there for Bruce Brown, but
like,
he's solid. But 20 plus million, no.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I love the fit. The money was just a little bit like, man, is that like on a champion's high or whatnot? But I don't know. I think Indiana is they're making smart basketball moves. But the contract, man, 22 million a year for Bruce Brown. I did not see that on the way for the former second round pick.
I thought he was going to get the mid-level for the Lakers, and I was going to be thrilled for him. And I thought that would have been another great situation because if you're not going to play with Jokic, go play with LeBron, who, for all intents and purposes, those are the two best guys. Like those are the two best vision guys in the league. You know, hell, I mean, throw him with Kay Cunningham. Why not? I mean, in all seriousness, I love him alongside Halliburton. Like invest in your guy. I think they do have a really fun competitive roster. I think they might be one of my league pass teams next year now with the Bruce Brown acquisition. And I know Troy's going to be excited to have Bruce Brown back in his town again. So he gets to go watch Bruce Brown for like $2 a night, that lucky bastard. But in all seriousness, like, yeah, I don't get it. Like I think that's my thing with 80% of free agency moves this year. I just don't get it.
Agreed.
Guys, that's all. We didn't even get to James Harden, Damian Lillard, all that stuff. I mean, Jeff, that just tells you how much we have to talk about next week.
I love it. Space
My
it out.
God.
We got so much to talk about.
Yeah. But Kool-Aid, thank you so much for being here, man. This
Kool-Aid.
is so fun to do.
Appreciate the invite as always.
No.
Yeah,
I do, man.
it's one of those things where it doesn't even feel like you're a guest because I mean we are just a family and do stuff with each other all the time. But anytime you do come on the From Half Court Pod, it always is a good time, man. And this channel wouldn't be where it is without you. So seriously, man, we're grateful for you.
And,
I'm grateful for you all, man.
And also to Brandon's credit, man, like the guy's busting his ass, and then he comes and joins his boys for a podcast.
Yes.
So a lot of love for you, Brandon, man. Just who you are as a person, but also the work you do. Like
without
you
any
do
hesitation either. He's like, yeah, absolutely, yeah. What time you guys thinking? Not a problem. Yeah, I'll hop right on.
He's a great human being. He does great work, and he busts his ass. So respect for him, man. I love you, Brandon. You're the man.
Nah, I love you guys, man. I appreciate you all a lot, and for you all. Yeah, it makes this stuff worth it. Like we say, for our community that we do the work for, and for you guys, especially you two in particular. I know our family has gotten larger, over the years, but you two in particular is kind of where this thing started. Not kind of, it is. I think Rod would be the only other one in Troy, who's probably not on the screen right now. And there was a lot of belief in each other. And I personally, coming from a background of being on a lot of different teams, man, this just hit differently, especially as like a father and everything. This just hits way different. So I appreciate doing this stuff with you guys. It makes it worth it. And I want to succeed because of you all. Like I do. I don't want to let my guys down. And I want to make sure that if there's any table we can eat at, that I'm doing my part to bring some portion to the table because you guys are crushing it. Y'all are crushing it like stars. I've been saying that for some time. You guys are stars, literally.
Yeah. Hey, what's good is what's good with first class if my guys can't sit, right? Like Jake Cole said.
I like it.
Yeah,
I like it.
We all got to get our own seats, man. But I appreciate you.
You know who might not be a star? Brandon Miller. He's currently again, this is just summer league.
Sean,
but first 12 minutes and 30 seconds.
Don't do it.
Hold on. Listen, hear me out. In the first 12 minutes and 30 seconds, this guy's played the entire game so far. My guy has 2 points, 4 fouls, 2 turnovers, 1 of 4 from the field. Summer league.
So now he's a bust.
No, but if I am the Spurs mascot, I am gonna keep resting at that devastated look that he had on that draft night. That's
Yeah,
all I'm
the
saying.
Hornets mascot.
Yeah, he was just like, he was so devastated when they drafted Brandon. And that's not even a joke. He literally did that. There is footage.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Oh my gosh. But guys,
Oh man, that's
that's going to do it for this week's episode of From Half Court. Thank you so much, everyone listening. If you like this podcast, if you like the video, smash that notification button so you don't miss any of the content we have coming here. But also, be sure you follow us on social media so you don't miss any of the work and the stuff we have going on. My boy Jeff at Jeff IF80. My boy Kool-Aid at Detroit Kool-Aid. Even Troy at Troy Sergey 44. I almost said Troy because I'm so used to it. But also, you can even follow me at Sean Half Court. But that is going to do it for today, folks. Thank you so much for listening. We'll catch you guys next time from Half Court. Be sure you're subscribed.